Hi, everyone. Today is Global Accessibility Awareness Day. I'm Lindsay Velecina with Scrum.org. Today I am here with Dave Dame. I'm the Director of Accessibility at Microsoft and Scrum.org PST, and also Dave West, the CEO here at Scrum.org. And we're just going to have a little chat here about accessibility and its importance. Let's start with this question here. So why is accessibility important to Scrum.org?
Well, I guess I should start, but before we do that, let's make sure that the people that are blind or have challenges seeing know who we are. So I'm Dave West, CEO of Scrum.org, sitting in Burlington, Massachusetts. I'm bald, English, as you can probably tell from my accent, and sitting here with a black shirt on. Maybe we should do that as well first. Dave Dame, where are you, and what do you look like for the people that can't see?
My name is Dave Dame. I'm in Waterloo, Ontario, Canada. I'm wearing a blue shirt, big silver headphones, which covers where I used to have hair, and I have glasses, and I'm a person with cerebral palsy.
Okay. And Lindsay, describe who you are and where you are, etc.
So I'm Lindsay Velecina. I oversee marketing communications here at Scrum.org, and I have a pink shirt on, and I'm in my house in Allentown, Pennsylvania.
Okay, so thank you. I just think, and that really just sums up how accessibility is important. Ultimately, we at Scrum.org believe that the best Scrum teams are diverse. We believe that the best communities are diverse. We have an amazing community of trainers, 340 of which Dave is one of them. And I have to say, the more diverse our community is, the more amazing it becomes. So accessibility is probably the first and most important element of any strategy in terms of trying to build a more diverse community, because without accessibility, without the ability for people to get access to training, to the community, to be able to read elements of our website, to be able to have access to the training classes, the assessments. Ultimately, there's no way of building diversity and inclusion. So at the heart of any strategy around building a better community and changing the world, we have to have accessibility as part of that. Dave, you and I talk about this a lot. What would you add? Why it's so important? What have you told me it's so important over and over again?
Well, the beauty about Scrum is it started with the foundation of cross-functional, getting people with a lot of multiple backgrounds and skills. But I think that's table stakes. Now we need to make sure we have diversity of thought. But it's to your point, Dave, how do we get that diverse team member onto the team? Because I always like to say, just because I can get in the building, I still don't feel like I belong in the building. So once you build the ramp, now you got to make me feel that I belong and I'm a part of it and I'm appreciated and I have the safety to bring my diverse self and to bring that unique skill set to play. But it's what you said at the start, it starts with accessibility. If somebody can't enter, they don't have a chance to feel included or not. And then if they don't feel included, they don't have a chance to be diverse or not. So it's going through the whole chain of things.
Yeah, and I think at Scrum.org in particular, you and members of the community have made me understand the importance of just being mindful that not everybody has the same approach, has the same abilities as I do. Obviously as a bald Englishman, fully, I've got reasonably good eyesight, I've got reasonably good hearing, I've got full access to be able to move, etc. Then how I use the keyboard, I tend to assume everybody's like me, and that is the biggest mistake. So when we start with accessibility, which is the first element, as you rightly said, to inclusivity, which then leads hopefully to diversity, we start thinking about what it means to people that aren't like me, which is, I think, a really important step.
That's why getting people different than you helps you see that perspective, right? Because nobody does it intentionally. Nobody says, "Hey, I'm going to exclude someone." But if you don't have that lived experience to understand what the difference is, and even me, Dave, as a trainer, it's different facilitating class than being a student in it. So even though I facilitated all the classes over a number of years, it wasn't until I proceeded as a student and the trainer where I'm like, wait a minute, how would I do that exercise? Because I can facilitate that exercise, but I'm not always the one needing to do it. And that's what started my mindset of I can't just look at it from a trainer perspective. Now I have to look at it from a student perspective. And even me with lived experience, I had that bias and I didn't see it until I experienced it.
I remember we were in Burlington, one of our face-to-faces. Obviously, this is pre-COVID, and you said to me, you said, "Oh, I never thought about blind students." We had that a blind student, and you were like, "Oh, why didn't I do that?" Well, you'd have thought that I would think about it, and you had this sort of epiphany when we were talking about how the heck does somebody who's blind, how do they appreciate this class? And we have very obviously interactive classes that you rely on lots of visuals, training from the back of the room and the like.
So how do we make the Scrum team and Scrum.org more inclusive?
I guess the first step is doing what we're doing now, right? Right, Dave? Having a conversation about it, trying to step out of your comfort zone. These are difficult conversations. Talking about disability, talking about accessibility is uncomfortable because you can say things that are wrong. Just how do I even describe somebody with the challenges that Dave has? So how do I write a user story for it? How do I write a definition of done that includes it when I'm embarrassed to even mention it because I might get it wrong? Because of course I'm going to get it wrong. I'm an idiot, I've not lived, I of course. So I think the first step is to talk about these things and deal with that those uncomfortable sort of like, how do we describe this? What do we think, etc. Dave, do you agree? This uncomfort I feel always when talking about this.
But you know what the good thing is, Dave, is you're going through the effort to be uncomfortable. You are taking the responsibility to say, you know what? Accessibility, that's Dave's problem. He should figure it out. You're taking that up. I know we're both Daves. I mean, Dave Dame. But I mean, like, you know what I mean? You're putting yourself through that uncomfortableness to go, you know what? This isn't just something for a person with disability to figure out. This isn't for someone else to figure out. You're taking the responsibility because being born in 1971, it was my parents' challenge to figure out how to get me into a normal stream to have this amazing life that I have. But then we started getting groups of inclusive designers, UX, and accessibility experts, and then at least it widened, but then it became their effort. But we're truly not going to be fully inclusive until we have what I like to call accessibility on the edge, meaning we're all taking the responsibility and we're all thinking imperfectly about it in an attempt to get perfect about it.
I think that's a very, very interesting point. I have to say, as over the last 5 years on my journey at Scrum.org, in terms of thinking about accessibility, I have unfortunately used an industrial paradigm to think about in accessibility. Our website's not accessible. Let's get somebody to help us do it. Let's outsource that responsibility. So let's get other people to fix these problems. And I've always thought it was somebody else's responsibility, or I did. Over the last few years, I've sort of applied that agile mindset, thinking actually it starts with I. Inclusivity, accessibility, diversity starts with me, you, I. And you've helped me. I'm very grateful, Dave. You and the community have helped me come to this understanding, because it is my responsibility. Every interaction that I have, every project that I'm working on, every backlog item that nobody ever looks at ever again that I put in the backlog, it is my responsibility to think about that, because I can very easily make mistakes and you can't outsource it, and that requires some level of discomfort as well.
That's the beauty of Scrum, right? We don't have to get it perfect right away, but let's inspect and adapt. Because even you and I, even if it wasn't accessible at the moment, we could all get together in a room and go, look, we got a problem. How are we going to figure this out? And we've always been able to figure it out through collaboration, inspection, and adaptation every single time. And that's why Scrum fits so well with inclusivity, because there's no right path to inclusivity. There's no standard way. It's really complex work, right? Inclusiveness and diversity. And we already have a framework that is meant just to deal with complexity. So I think the only way we're going to get an accessible, inclusive, diverse world is through inspecting and adapting. And it's what we support.
Yeah, I 100% agree. We're trying to do more of that at Scrum.org every day. We're trying to ensure that our sprint reviews, obviously, Dave, you attend many of those sprint reviews. You're an advisor to some of our training content, and it's great to have that perspective. We're always looking for more broader perspective so that we can all learn, and I can become a better product owner and a better, dare I say, almost a better human being as well. But every day we inspect and adapt and improve, right?
And it's helping change the perception, right? Like recently, Microsoft put the accessibility checker right beside the spell checker. So they're saying it's almost as inappropriate or unprofessional to send something that isn't spell checked as it is to ensure the content of the documents are accessible to all. And it starts with creating that persona that it's no longer something you should wipe aside. So I think creating this awareness and changing the paradigm and really being patient and dealing with this complexity is going to get us there.
And having those uncomfortable conversations, and be willing to do that, even if you're going to say the wrong thing. I think that's crucial as well.
Exactly. Be open. And if you're someone with a disability, raise your voice. Like everybody will do it. And one of the favorite things you said, Dave, to me when we were at a face to face, you said, I really like diversity because I want to be the different person in the room and I can't if they're all like me. And even though it was your normal humorous self, it was a very purposeful statement to say, this is what I want. And it's leadership like that. It's going to help us move it further.
I do. It was a little self-serving because I want to be special. I want to be that unique. Yeah. So, but yes, exactly. It is. That's exactly what we need to be doing. So I'm excited for the next year. I'm hoping that GAD Day and days like this. Obviously, we shouldn't rely on a day to be reminded of these things. But I guess it's like Mother's Day or Father's Day or birthdays, right? You have to have that reminder once a year just to get refocused. But I'm hoping that this time next year will be a little bit better. We'll inspect and adapt, and the year after will be a little bit better. Every year will improve.
Absolutely. Thank you both so much for this very important conversation on this very important day. Are there any final thoughts that you want to leave us with?
Dave, you got anything?
It's hard to add to what we've already had. We had such a rich conversation.
Yes,
I just want to say, everybody's going to be disabled at some point in their life. Just some of us have beat you to it. So if you don't see you need it today, think about it for your future self.
Wow, that is absolutely, and I've got nothing to add to that other than I would say it all starts with I.
Yep.
I. It's your responsibility. There's nobody going to do it for you. So let's fix this world. Everybody's responsible for fixing it.